We've seen a lot of movies that tell a story about a character learning to understand people they used to see as enemies. In most of these movies, that change is depicted as a beautiful transformation. But District 9 approaches this idea from a totally different perspective. Here, the character is forced to learn what life is like for people he actively persecutes, and the process is not pretty. Director Neil Blomkamp used his personal experience of growing up in South Africa under apartheid as the background for a sci-fi story that asks what it will take for human beings to really understand the perspective of someone they see as different from them. We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it, beat it. District 9 initially presents itself as a mockumentary with interviews, archival footage, and lots of on-the-street style filming.
The doors didn't open for 3 months. It just hovered there. Nobody could get in.
The prawn likes to eat the rubber. Figure sort of like a marshmallow. No, 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 no.
That feeling of being grounded in reality is really important for this story in particular because it combines real-world situations with the sci-fi concept of aliens. It takes place in an alternate reality where an alien ship arrives on Earth and stops over Johannesburg in 1982. In most sci-fi movies, when aliens come to Earth, they're often depicted as a superior race that's coming to study us or conquer us. But the aliens aboard this ship seem to have arrived by necessity or even by accident. When the humans enter the ship for the first time, they discover that the aliens' leaders have all already died, and all the remaining aliens are severely malnourished. So essentially, the aliens are refugees. The twist in the story is that when humans make first contact with extraterrestrial life, they're not faced with the same kind of threat you'd expect in the alien invasion genre. Instead, they're faced with something that's already very common in human society, but with aliens becoming the vulnerable and disadvantaged group.
What was a temporary holding zone soon became fenced, became militarized, and before we knew it, it was a slum.
The actual story begins around 30 years later. All of the aliens have been segregated into a part of the city known as District 9. And you'd think that the humans would want to learn everything they can about the aliens, but even after almost 30 years of having them on Earth, most of the humans still don't seem to know all that much. That might seem odd, but when we consider how Blomkamp is using the aliens in the story, it starts to make sense. Blomkamp grew up in South Africa through the 80s and 90s, which means he grew up during apartheid, which was an official system of racial segregation enforced by the South African government. It affected their society in every way imaginable and created a racial hierarchy with the minority white population at the top. This system officially lasted from 1948 to 1994. So it's no coincidence that Blomkamp set the story in Johannesburg, one of South Africa's most prominent cities. The title District 9 is a direct reference to District 6. In 1966, the government declared this residential area to be whites only and forcibly removed 60,000 people to another area 16 miles away. But even after apartheid technically ended, the issues did not suddenly go away. The government continued to displace communities of people and racial tensions remained high. In fact, District 9 was mostly filmed in a real neighborhood where the residents were actively being forced to relocate into government housing. Rather than claiming that the story of District 9 is a direct allegory for any specific moment in the country's history, Blomkamp has suggested that he just wanted to tell a sci-fi story set in the world that he grew up seeing. So let's come back to this idea about how the aliens are portrayed. It's not so much that humans couldn't learn about them, it's more that they don't really want to. Most of the humans only know a few stereotypical things about the aliens, like that they like cat food.
We need you to sign there. Okay, there it is. Now you can take that. Oh, okay, all right. Thomas, wait. Take it easy, my friend.
The creatures became incredibly obsessed with cat food. There's something about that. It was like catnip for cats.
Some of the humans seem more sympathetic, but most of them still use a derogatory term, prawns, to refer to the aliens. This is because they kind of look like prawns, but it obviously reduces them to unintelligent animals. And the creature design was very deliberate. Blomkamp said that he wanted the aliens to be repulsive at first. He wanted them to be unpleasant to look at, so he designed them to resemble insects. But a key aspect was making sure that they had some human facial features, especially eyes, so that if you looked past the attributes that we naturally reject, you could still connect with them. So all of these elements intentionally reflect the way humans treat other humans when they perceive them as different. They don't bother to really learn what their culture is, where they come from, or why. They often make derogatory names to refer to them, and they usually pick noticeable physical qualities to highlight differences and demean them. And we've talked about this before in Movie Club, but this is what sci-fi excels at. It takes an ordinary situation and heightens it through the use of an extraordinary element. But it only does that to help us look at the ordinary things through a new lens. Sci-fi asks questions. It may not always answer them, but it poses them with these kinds of situations. And through the main character, we see what question the story is asking. Vickis is not a heroic character. At the beginning of the story, he's the exact opposite. He's a mid-level crony working for the MNU, or Multinational United.
And what we do here at this department is we try to
engage with the prawn on behalf of MNU.
This is a private defense contractor hired by the government to manage the alien population. And there's an immediate conflict of interest because the MNU is also one of the world's biggest weapons manufacturers. The aliens have advanced weaponry, but the problem is that they have a biological component, so humans can't operate them. But that doesn't prevent the MNU from getting as many of the weapons as possible and trying to figure out how to profit from them. Vicus is put in charge of the effort to relocate all of the aliens from District 9 to a camp outside of the city. As Vicus goes door to door to serve eviction notices, he has zero empathy for any of the aliens.
And we are here to serve you an eviction notice. You just put your scroll there. I got the scroll there because as he hit it, that's what I was saying. It counts as a scroll.
He manipulates them, blackmails them, and anything else necessary to complete his job. But this all changes when he picks up a piece of alien technology.
But I don't trust it. You know, I don't trust anything that...
The liquid starts to rewrite his DNA. Vicus only realizes this when he removes some bandages and discovers his hand has transformed into an alien arm. This makes him incredibly valuable because he can now operate the alien weaponry.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Can you grip that?
The MNU plan to perform procedures that will allow them to recreate this ability, but Vicus won't survive through it. So he escapes and goes back to the only place he thinks he might be safe, District 9. He returns to the alien who owned the black liquid, who we know as Christopher Johnson. Christopher had been gathering the liquid for the past 20 years. He is planning to use it as fuel to return home, so turning Vicus into an alien is apparently just a side effect. Christopher claims that he has technology that can save Vicus on the mothership, but he needs the liquid, so they form a temporary alliance to try and get it back. As the story progresses, Vicus continues to transform into an alien, and the movie makes this process really grotesque. Avatar and District 9 both feature stories where the main character becomes an alien and ends up defending them against humans. Jake Sully learns the Na'vi culture and falls in love with Neytiri. The movie depicts the Na'vi world and their culture as something beautiful that Jake comes to appreciate. He gains empathy and willingly joins them. Vicus has no choice in his transformation, and it is depicted as a horrific process. Vicus only helps Christopher out of necessity, and even then he still resents Christopher and the other aliens through most of the story. He only has a change of heart right at the last second.
Listen, you go ahead. You can make it. I'm gonna just hold him off here, and I'll join you soon.
And at that point, he can't really go back anyway because he's found out that it will take Christopher 3 years to return to Earth and transform him back into a human. So what it took for a man like Vicus to finally see Christopher Johnson as an equal, to have any empathy for his situation, was to go through an extremely painful process where he was literally forced to understand what it was like to be Christopher. It's no secret that to really empathize with someone different from you, you have to put yourself in their shoes. In most Hollywood stories, this is portrayed through a character having a change of heart, but District 9 decides to present that idea as the result of a larger situation. Vicus was quick to view himself as superior to the aliens when he believed he would always belong to the human group, the group in power. But the moment the other humans saw value in him, they didn't see him as a human anymore. He was nothing more than an asset. District 9's comparison to reality is not subtle. Some people might even say it's on the nose, having the aliens stand in for a racially discriminated group. Some people have critiqued it for not being an appropriate allegory and for oversimplifying the complex history in South Africa. And I think those are fair critiques, but I also don't think the story is asking the audience to consider whether or not treating people like this is ethical or not. That answer should be an obvious no. But the problem is that it keeps happening, and obviously not just in South Africa. So the question I think the story is posing is, what will it really take to get people to understand the cruelty they're perpetrating in the world? And I think it's an open-ended question. For a man like Vicus, it took a complete reversal of his place in society to even begin to learn empathy.
I found this at my front door. My friend said I should just throw it away because it's just a piece of rubbish.
So what will it take for the rest of humanity? This time we saw a movie use aliens to represent something specific, but next week, we're going to see a story use an alien entity to address more abstract ideas. Annihilation was written and directed by Alex Garland, who's known for movies like Ex Machina, Civil War, and the 28 Days Later franchise. And one of the major things I've noticed about Garland's work is that he loves ambiguity in his stories. He's a filmmaker that refuses to spell things out, and Annihilation is no different. When making this movie, his goal was to tell the kind of story that the audience could think about for a long time afterward. But it's not just weird for the sake of being weird. Garland also said that there's nothing arbitrary in the movie. It's all there for a reason, to service the theme and structure of the story. For me, that makes Garland's movies like an intellectual puzzle. There's all these pieces laid out for you, and you have to see what kind of picture you can make from it. The interesting part is each of us will probably form a different picture based on how we interpret meaning from the pieces of the story. But there are still some primary ideas that the story is tackling, so here's some questions to keep in mind while you watch. How does this story use the idea of aliens to discuss its themes compared to other alien movies? How does that difference affect how you feel about the story? What do each of the characters represent? represent? What do they want? What is their motivation and background? Do you think who they are as characters changes how they're affected by the shimmer? And lastly, the question Alex Garland asked himself when creating the film, why are we all self-destructive and what are the different ways we face that thing? So let's chat about District 9 in the comments, and I'll see you back here on Sunday to discuss Annihilation. Also, just a final note, Annihilation is one of the more polarizing movies I've ever seen. It kind of seems like reactions are a love it or hate it, and I've been looking forward to discussing with you guys for a long time. So I'm super excited to hear what you think about it, and if you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.